It was time to finally say goodbye to the beautiful island of Langkawi and make our way over to Thailand, which is about a 25 nautical mile trip. Local legend Phil from Langkawi was on board to help me navigate some of the tight passages and shallows that we would encounter along the way. For all the hard work leading up to this moment, Langkawi sure gave us a glorious early morning send-off, and we steamed along at a steady 5 to 6 knots.
Beautiful morning. So we're going right through there. You can't even really see there's an opening right now, but there's a little marker buoy on the shore. We turn up there and cross our fingers that a ferry isn't going through at the same time. Fun stuff. What a beautiful spot. Okay.
Our passage plan takes us along the primary ferry route between Langkawi and Satun, Thailand. And even though I'd travelled this route before, there was something really special and different about doing it in my own boat. Perfectly jade-coloured water meeting beautiful, naturally steep mountain landscapes on both sides of the boat reminded me why I love the freedom that being on a boat brings. It was time to test out my makeshift fuel transfer pump system, and even though the boat was steady and consistent in her movement, you can see the sunlight moving side to side in the cabin. I was all at the same time certainly glad I was not trying to do this with a funnel. It only took a few minutes to keep our primary tank topped up. One of those rare moments when planning and execution actually come together perfectly. Finally, we entered the Straits of Malacca for a direct line across to Thai waters.
So we've got about 8 miles to go. And it's been just a very smooth, peaceful, tranquil crossing. It's a beautiful day. We passed quite a few of the long-tail boats. A little bit closer in on the Malaysian side, where we're just coming into Thailand, into the Satun area. We'll thread the needle down through here. Lots of fishing pots in the water, but also a lot of junk, a lot of floating plastic bottles and so forth. The old girl's just loving being in the water. You can feel her. She's just plodding along, and she's just really feeling into it. Engine's working beautifully, sitting on the same temperature, maintaining that. Fuel consumption's not bad. Just transferring a bit of fuel over as we go. Little pump system's working great. All in all, just a really nice, tranquil day, tranquil way to get across. The challenges are about to come up because we're about to hit the low spot, the river entry, and because of the timing, we sort of had to get away, and we're going to hit, well, we're probably going to be hitting very close to a Neap's low tide. So there's a pretty good chance that we'll hit the bottom, which is, it's all mud and sand, and we'll just sit there and just sort of slowly plod our way out of that, possibly having to wait a little bit later on in the afternoon or night where we get rising tide take us off there, but it should be okay. And then the plan is we have to tie up next to the slip yard and get slipped tomorrow. I mean, now we had to do this because there's going to be a dredger that's about to be launched to dredge the river, funny enough. And if I didn't get in today and tomorrow, then I'd probably be waiting another month. So yeah, it's just beautifully cruising along. Phil's doing an amazing job as navigator. His knowledge in and around the ravines and so forth is fantastic, and we're just plodding along.
The entry to Satoon is surrounded by a massive sandbar that stretches for miles. There is pretty much one way in and out, guided by channel markers and land-based sighting aids that take you into the Thar Miang River. All of a sudden, we're in Thailand. Thar Miang is a pretty busy river system, used heavily by long-tail fishing boats and local ferries, taking people between the mainland and the island of Thailand. We spent the next hour or so dodging all sorts of boats and waving to the locals before tying up for the night outside the shipyard. It was a perfect first passage on a perfect day, and the memory of this one will stay with me for a very long time. Early morning on the river shows just how humid it is in this part of the world, with every surface wearing a slippery, damp cover. Still, it won't be long before the old girl doesn't see any water for quite some time, so I'm just enjoying taking it all in and noticing the details, knowing full well that the next time she sits in this water, she will look like an entirely different boat.
So it's Saturday morning. It was an interesting night last night. It was very hot. Sleeping in the boat with all the hatches closed up. I'm on the river here and it's full of mosquitoes. I've got some really hardcore mosquito repellent on me at the moment. Otherwise, I'd be getting carried away. I didn't get woken up by the roosters this morning. I was woken up by the wild dogs barking. There's a lot of wild dogs around here, so I have to be extremely careful. But other than the long-tail boats, of which a lot of people obviously use this river to fish and to go fishing, it's got a tranquilness to it, a peacefulness to it. I'm looking forward to hopefully getting hauled up this morning. Yuha, who owns the yard that I'm in, says that we're on course to get hauled up on a cable system this morning. So we'll see how we go with that. Other than that, it's a nice big relief to be here and to get underway.
A few hours later, Phil and Yuha turned up with a very welcome morning coffee. We spent a bit of time yakking and going over what the game plan was, making sure lines were set and all the yard workers knew what their job was on this slip. Of course, the river had already started to get pretty busy with boats in all directions, so it was going to be a matter of dodging local traffic while I turned the boat around. The biggest challenge by far was that we were right at a flooding tide, so the current was running pretty fast at about 2 to 3 knots up the river. This made it impossible to get the boat perpendicular to the slip entry. After a couple of failed quick attempts, I decided to take the boat up, turn her around and let her drift down with the current, where I could control her better with a little reverse throttle. You've got to remember, this is almost 60 foot of boat that I need to position perfectly into a little hole. So at precisely the right time, I moved the boat at speed directly at the corner of the pier, and we cast the lines to the yard workers. I was just hoping everyone could hold the ropes and steady her into position before the tide took her sideways and smashed her into the concrete pier. With success, it was just a matter of letting the slip team do their job, which in this case involves guys diving underwater and chocking the boat up on a big raft. It was stupidly hot, well over 40 degrees centigrade, and all Phil and I could do was watch and sweat like crazy in the baking sun. Eventually we started moving, with the boat now sitting on the giant metal raft under her, but unfortunately the positioning was not correct, so we had to go back down, reverse a little, and go through the positioning all over again. It ended up taking a good couple of hours to eventually haul us all the way out, but I can assure you that as soon as we were done, that beer tasted pretty amazing. Coming up next, we get to work stripping everything off the deck, and we move the boat into a permanent position for the work to start. Thanks for sticking around. I really hope you enjoyed this episode. Please consider leaving a thumbs up if you have, and certainly leave a comment down below. I'd love to hear from you.